All right, welcome back to the MovieBabble Podcast. This week we've got a pretty full slate. We're talking about the 1 year anniversary of the greatest movie ever made. We're going to talk about some interesting sequel news for a couple of different franchises, as well as it sounds like a pretty constant topic, some more theater closings and movie delays, and of course everything we've been watching recently. So let's just go ahead and pay our respects to Joker. I thought I knew movies until October 4th, 2019, and I've been a changed man ever since.
I got nothing.
Joker 2 when?
I'm honestly surprised it's not already out. I'm really hoping they just rip off The Departed this time. Maybe move into a different phase of Marty.
Yeah, what other Scorsese movie could they rip off?
Maybe some Irishman vibes. It's just like makeup to make Joaquin look 80. He just sits in his wheelchair in the hospital.
He's contemplating things.
Does Pacino?
Yeah.
Is Pacino in there again, or throwing some applause? No.
We gotta find some other Scorsese mainstays for the next one. So you could probably do. I don't know. Pacino's not really a mainstay. Go with Joe Pesci, maybe.
Bring him out of retirement for the 10th time.
He'll be the Riddler.
I would actually see this. Now I'm interested in seeing Joker too.
Todd Phillips, give us a call. But yeah, so I don't think we need to dwell on that movie much more. But speaking of movies we don't really want to dwell on, Jon Favreau's The Lion King is getting a sequel, which in itself would be pretty big news. But Barry Jenkins is directing it, which I think is going to be ultimately a good choice. It's a choice that doesn't really make sense for the artist or the corporate entity. Just like when the news dropped, it seems like an odd combo. But I think Jenkins is going to be obviously a very strong candidate for The Lion King 2. I hope he can bring a lot more like grounding and depth to it. I mean, his last two movies were Moonlight and If Beale Street Could Talk, which is a very solid track record. So I don't really know what this movie is or is hoping to be, but I have high hopes for it.
This is so weird to me because you see Moonlight and If Beale Street Could Talk, and they're the most humanist, like super thoughtful, just lovely movies that are very focused on just people dealing with very societal issues. And then he's gonna go direct a bunch of CGI animals. It's just so weird to me. I never would have thought he would do this, but I mean, I hope he gets paid. That's good for him. He deserves that. And maybe if this is what allows him to just do an entire career of more Moonlights and things like that, then by all means, go for it. Everyone deserves to get paid, especially him. I consider him probably, if not the best, one of the best filmmakers working right now. But yeah, this is just so weird to me. I don't know what you do with this. If this is going to be Simba's Pride, which I remember watching when I was 5, but just from my parents telling me, I don't really know what happens in there. Is it going to be that or its own thing? Like, it's just so bizarre to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that he is going to get paid, right? Like, this is going to be a pretty good payday for him.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, especially if he ends up getting any box office points, which as the director of a big studio film, he probably will. I mean, the second first Lion King made over like 1.6 billion. I have no doubt this one's at least going to cross $1 billion. I don't know if it'll do better because we really haven't seen a competent Disney sequel so far. I mean, we had Alice Through the Looking Glass, which just completely fell on its face. And then we had Maleficent 2, Mistress of Evil, which I have just no recollection of either of those movies in my brain. Sometimes I'll see screenshots of them and be like, oh yeah, that was a thing. But we really don't have a lot to track what The Lion King 2 could be like yet. But I'm assuming he's going to get a ton of money regardless.
I mean, like it's Barry Jenkins, so we all know that it's going to be good. Like this is going to be good no matter what. But I'm still weirded out that this is going to happen. And of course, I do think that this is going to be a trend. It's already a trend. Obviously, we've seen a few live action remakes get sequels, and now we're going to start seeing the spin-offs, and it will kind of devolve into what we're seeing with Marvel, and all the and this huge expanded universe. Apparently, this film will be exploring the mythology of the Lion King, including Mufasa's origin story. So that's pretty interesting. And I mean, it's Barry Jenkins, right? You can't doubt him. It's going to be good, but it is so weird.
Yeah, he's an incredibly thoughtful director, and I feel like I've spoken at length. I love the way he uses the camera and the way he just focuses on people's faces just to create empathy in you as the viewer. I just think he's so good, and I don't really know how he'll do that, just staring at a blank CGI face of a lion. But I don't know. And who knows? Maybe this does kind of remind me of something. Did either of you guys see Beyonce's Black is King a few months ago when that came out?
I did not.
No.
Yeah, so it was really interesting because it apparently like that was how Beyonce came on to lend her voice to the movie. She was like, I just want to make these 3 different projects for you afterwards, and Disney was like, sure. So she made one of them was Black is King, which is the experimental music video film that dropped on Disney Plus a few months ago. And it's all these really elaborate and African infused dance numbers, and it's very, very cool in that sense. And there's a lot of Lion King just dialogue spliced throughout. Like you have a lot of Mufasa talking, and then there's all of these really interesting quotes that they use throughout. And it's basically reclaiming a lot of the Lion King for just Black people, because I think there definitely is a discussion for Disney like westernizing a lot of the stories they tell. So I thought that was a really interesting ploy in that Beyonce movie, which is just kind of weird. I didn't really think that was going to happen, but maybe there's something. I feel like there's something similar to explore there, because I feel like Barry Jenkins could refocus this, because it effectively is a Black story. It's African and the plains. I think there's something to play with there that I think maybe excites him. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm hoping this will be, not to use the phrase "my Black Panther," since we were talking about Joker a minute ago, but I'm hoping that this will be kind of their live action remake version of Black Panther, where they really just try to do something that reaches. And I mean, you don't get Barry Jenkins to do a play it safe kind of movie in terms of that thematic approach. So I'm hoping that they reach for something deeper and really deliver just something we haven't seen with these live action remakes so far.
What are the odds that there is somewhere down the line in the development stage we get the press release that Barry Jenkins is leaving Lion King 2 due to creative differences? Because I feel like that's very much in play here.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not 100% familiar with if Disney has had that occur a lot. I know there are a lot of other studios that have issues like that. But is that something that frequently happens with Disney projects? Because I feel like they're, I don't know. I just don't remember seeing that too often. But it could happen here for sure.
Ron Howard's Barry Jenkins, The Lion King 2.
Yeah, we have everything with Star Wars. I don't know. I feel like they have a lot of, like, for Maleficent 2, like, I couldn't tell you the director of that movie. Like, I feel like they get a lot of people who can just shoot things, just tell the story, shoot the script, and yeah, they do sometimes struggle with their directors and whatnot. And I mean, you just look at everything that Star Wars dealt with, and you have everything going back from Josh Trank to everything that happened with Solo. It's just all over the place. So who knows? I hope he gets to make a really interesting movie, because, yeah, Ryan Coogler, even before Black Panther, even just with Creed, there's just so many interesting things that were just, quite frankly, never in a Rocky movie beforehand in that movie. And I just hope he gets to do something interesting, because I'll be honest, I almost fell asleep during the first Lion King so many times. It was so boring to me. And I feel like no one left that movie being like, oh yeah, that was great. It was just a movie that, for, like, weirdly everybody saw for no apparent reason. Everyone, like, at best was just, yeah, it's a movie, it's fine. So I hope he gets to do something interesting with it, because then it would just be the worst that I have to sit through 2 of these live action Lion Kings.
Yeah, I mean, point is though, he's going to get paid.
Yeah, drop the bag for Barry Jenkins. He deserves it.
Yeah, Barry will be making bucks. Good for him. And then I guess kind of the other really out of left field movie announcement. I mean, what a week for just out of left field announcements in general. But just the other kind of out of left field movie thing was Jamie Foxx's return as Electro for Spider-Man 3 number 2. I guess maybe Spider-Man 3 number 3, but there's only been one that actually made it all the way to being called and released as Spider-Man 3. But the news broke a few days ago, and then Jamie Foxx had this Instagram post where he was talking about how he's returning as Electro, and he said, "I won't be blue in this one." But then the Instagram post was deleted not long after. So of course there's just like a million articles speculating whether or not he'll be playing the same Electro or a different Electro, or whether or not all the different Spider-Men will be involved with kind of a SpiderVerse situation, and lots of craziness going on in the Marvel multiverse. But I feel like it could very easily be either way. And I'm kind of down to see Jamie Foxx return as Electro. I think like his performance wasn't the flaw with that character. It was the way that character, just that movie was written, with Sony desperately trying to make their own MCU. And so I'm hoping that they've learned from their mistakes, but this is also Sony, so I'm not too optimistic.
I mean, it's neat that he's coming back, and I think this is something that we might see, not super often, but I mean, we see it obviously with J.K. Simmons there coming in and reprising his role. But this is kind of maybe a shot of redemption for him. I think that's kind of neat. But I just want them to get weird with these movies. Like we were talking before we came on, I want to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland, and I want to see a multiverse movie just for fun. Why not?
Yeah, is this a backdoor Spider-Verse sequel? Maybe, possibly. That would literally be my favorite thing in the world if that actually happened. I would love it so much. But yeah, I think The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a hot mess. That movie is just really, really bad. It's 10 different movies at once. But I really love Jamie Foxx in that movie because he's so campy, and there's so much meme potential in what he's doing in that movie. There's like the Times Square sequence where he's like it's my birthday, it's time to blow out my candles, or whatever the hell he says, and he does his lightning strike, and it's so bad, but I love it so much. Yeah, that movie's really bad, but I love him in that movie, and it's just so over the top. And he's at like a 15, and the rest of that movie is at like a 6 or 7. He's in a totally different movie, but honestly, if he brought the same energy to this, I wouldn't hate it. But then maybe everyone else might hate it. I don't know. I'm just here for the memes and Electro being bizarre.
Yeah, my biggest fear is they're going to try and use it as a shortcut to try and build up like their Sinister Six or something, which was kind of my biggest issue with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they were like, what if we just introduce every villain with one origin story? And like they had this whole setup with Doc Ock and the Vulture and Scorpion and all those Sinister Six people. So I'm kind of afraid they'll be like, people remember Rice Efon's the Lizard, we'll just throw him in here too, or we already did an Electro origin story, so that's just part of it now. So I'm hoping they don't take shortcuts, especially as we've seen like with the slate Sony has been announcing, and with Morbius. Remember when that movie was going to come out this year? Just like talking about how much they're trying to do at once. So I'm hoping it's handled with a little bit more Feige oversight.
Yeah, me too. Sony, I feel like we talk about this all the time, but they have no idea what they're doing, it seems like. Just there's so much information that leaks out of there all the time. Like it doesn't even feel like they have like a united front on how they want to release their bad movie ideas. We've been here at Spider-Man 3 many times, and it feels kind of sort of like we're going down the same path, but yeah, Kevin Feige being involved is very helpful, and just having that Marvel influence maybe gets rid of some of the schlock involved with the Spider-Man sequel at Sony. But yeah, I want my Spider-Man. It's my Spider-Verse sequel. That's all I care about.
I'm actually seeing a new report here. It looks like Kate McKinnon will be reprising her role as Holtzman from Ghostbusters in the upcoming Spider-Man 3. Sony's just throwing all their franchises into this.
Is the Men in Black Jump Street also getting folded into this as well?
Yeah, Channing Tatum and Will Smith will be returning. Yeah, that is what little Spider-Man news we have for now. And then the other big thing is was No Time to Die being pushed back into the next year. And now we don't really have any major theatrical releases until Soul, which is still November 20th, but is also in the air. There's been lots of rumors of that getting a hybrid release, kind of like we saw with Onward. The movies are kind of shutting down for the year. And so Cineworld released a statement saying that they were considering closing all of their US theaters, which would be every Regal theater in the US, as well as a lot of their UK theaters. So theaters might actually be dying. And Tenet already came out, so I don't know what else we can do.
Yeah, and just last week we went through the rest of the year, the release schedule, and it got worse within 5 days. It's unbelievable. But yeah, it's really, really scary for movie theaters right now. I don't know. I know they do all these things with extending lines of credit and getting more and more debt, but at some time that bill comes due, and obviously movie theaters are struggling already for profit. Like even before the pandemic, the margins were getting smaller and smaller. So this is just another really bad blow. And yeah, you have Soul coming out, which yeah, Disney Plus is probably where that's going to end up. So besides that, like we're looking at, unless you're a big Croods guy, you got Croods 2 coming out Thanksgiving apparently. But other than that, big-ish movie we're looking at is Free Guy on December 11th.
Yes.
Other than that, you have Happiest Season, which is apparently supposed to be an Oscar movie with Kristen Stewart. But yeah, in terms of big tentpole entertainment, we're waiting until then. And I feel like those movies are also just a few weeks away from making decisions as well, because the COVID cases are not going down here in the US. They're going back up, and we're going into flu season. So I guess this is where I say everyone get your flu shots now, because it'll help immensely. But yeah, it's one bad news item after another.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about this topic here. And it sucks because this is coming kind of like the COVID hit at just such a sad time for theaters, because I think 2019 and 2018 were really impressive years in terms of the box office. Revenue was certainly up, not only with Endgame pushing 2.8 billion, but you had The Lion King over 1.6. No one saw that coming. I don't know if anyone expected Frozen 2 to almost hit 1.5 billion. Joker is $1 billion R-rated film. Like there are just so many big blockbusters, but there's been this trend in Hollywood for the last few decades that is kind of counterproductive to theaters in a time like this, because for the last few decades, what you've been seeing is a slow transition for movie studios to focus on big blockbusters and really cut out their production of these middle-sized films, the medium-sized movies. And you're seeing every year less and less movies get made by studios because the priority is with those top 10 movies that they're making, and they're all massive budgets. They don't want to put those movies out in a time like this. Understandably, they can't open up in big markets. They can't do it. But what happens is there's no content. I think what you saw these last few months was theaters start to open, and we saw good per theater averages, pretty good per theater averages, considering the situation. But now the per theater averages are getting low again, back into the hundreds rather than the thousands, and there's just no content. And that's the issue right now, and that's why the theaters are definitely struggling. The medium-sized movies are gone, and they're on streaming services, and we have to rely on the big budget movies, and theaters just can't run them right now.
Yeah, and I know a big issue was that there wasn't a lot of lobbying for government support on the US side of things. And so there was an article I saw earlier this week that a lot of filmmakers were really trying to push for that now. And it really kind of feels like a too little, too late scenario, because the theaters are desperately in need of a bailout. And even when these movies do release, like we saw with Tenet, that doesn't necessarily mean people are just going to come pouring in and money's going to start flowing through again. So it's a very scary time to be a movie theater business right now.
Yeah, I saw James Cameron, Clint Eastwood, and Martin Scorsese are going to be lobbying Congress. I saw
Yeah.
that the other day.
When Marty
for
shows
him.
up and asks for money, you hand it over.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix and Apple have done that. Have done just that because they've given him what, 200 million for both his movies, Killer of the Flower Moon and The Irishman. But yeah, even we're looking at Tenet here, and that movie was, I think, the big push behind that is we're going to be the only thing in theaters for months. So we're going to play for months and months and months, and we're going to have all these weekends with $4 million, and it's going to pile up, and we're going to make our money back. And now that's might not happen because it's over 300 million at this point, which I gotta say it's probably not the worst case scenario, all things considered, for what you might expect from this movie. But yeah, these things close, and you have all these, like, I know jobs will probably be lost out in the short term because of that, because they're going to deal with a loss that it might get made up later on in streaming when it eventually goes to VOD, and then all the rights to go with that. But yeah, it's a crazy ripple effect, and then just the film industry is just really hurting right now.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a lot of banking on Tenet to really be this thing that kind of saved movies, and you had movies that were optimistically scheduled for August, even in October, November, and now they're all gone and have pushed back to February. Looks to be kind of the next beginning of these big budget crowd drawing movies, because I'm at this point I'm assuming Wonder Woman's probably going to get pushed as well. As much as I want to see Free Guy, it's probably going to go that way. It's just what a crazy time. It's just a shame the Rise of Skywalker couldn't have been delayed by a year.
The thing too about Tenet is you look even at its overseas grosses, and it's at 260 million overseas right now, which is actually not bad, all things considered. Like, that's actually pretty good. But even then, it is underperforming in China. And China, it opened up in 22,000 theaters in China. China's box office seemed to be back to normal. You have this Chinese film, I forget the name of it right now, but it's made hundreds of millions of dollars, and Tenet opens up to 30 in China. Right now it's sitting at 65 million overall gross in China. That's disappointing for Tenet. I think that they definitely wanted 100 million in China. They're not going to get it. So even then, you can blame COVID for a lot of its struggles here, 100%, and in maybe some other markets, but it could have done better in China, and it didn't.
Yeah, and along with that, with the mentioning all of these mid-budget movies that have just been basically disbanded by studios, and now these are all on streaming. And I feel like, even though we've talked about this for years, I feel like even before this podcast, where just everything was going towards streaming, and that was the way of the future. But even this fall, we have so much crap coming out on Netflix and HBO Max and Hulu, all these things that were probably pretty expensive, that I'm sure these platforms are going to put a lot of eyes on, and people will probably like them. And that's kind of a point of no return for theaters now, because it's just like, hey, we have your A24 horror movie that critics like and everyone hates, but it makes a decent amount of money. And then you have Avengers Endgame, and then stuff like The Trial of the Chicago 7 goes to Netflix. And then you have Rebecca also going to Netflix, and Mank as well. And just all these, like, you have David Fincher who's going to make a Netflix movie because studios don't want to make a 60 million plus adult movie anymore. But yeah, like, and I feel like the virus just exacerbated that issue now, where they literally have nothing to show in any way possible.
RIP movie theaters. But let's go ahead and just talk about the competition in movie theaters, because Netflix is our overlord now. It'd be one of like 3 companies left in a few years, and I don't think they had as big of a week as they did a few years ago. But I'm just going to run through the top 10 for this week. So in the number 1 spot, they had American Murder, The Family Next Door. Number 2, The Outpost. Number 3, Enola Holmes. Number 4, Welcome to Sudden Death. Number 5, that hit 2011 classic Yogi Bear. Uh, Number 6, Vampires versus the Bronx. Number 7, The Boys in the Band. Number 8, Real Steel, which has actually been up there for a couple weeks. Number 9, The Social Dilemma. And number 10, You've Got This. So no Illumination movies, which is surprising. That's pretty unusual. But it does have a little bit of new activity. Netflix has a lot of originals kind of dominating right now. So let's go ahead and start off with the number 1, The American Murder, The Family Next Door, which I believe, Nick, you had some words on.
Yeah, I hate this movie, and everyone really, really likes it. It's the next movie in the, I guess, true crime, just craziness that people go nuts for on Netflix. So this movie, there was I think it was a year or so ago, there was a horrible murder. It was the Chris Watts murder. Long story short, he killed his wife and 2 daughters. Just horrible. And so this documentary is basically splicing together the chain of events in that murder leading up to his confession and all the machinations that went through that, based on police footage and like social media footage and cell phone footage, like wherever they could get stuff. And then they even have text messages from Chris Watts to his wife who he killed, Shanann. But yeah, it's tracing all these events and going back and forth in time, and it is just so tone deaf, and I really don't like it, and people are going nuts for it. I feel like it's like a mini Tiger King of sort, where it's this crazy real life story that people are going nuts for, and the documentary itself is really, really riveting. I can't remember who the director of it offhand, but I think she does a really good job splicing this together and making it really exciting to watch. But yeah, it is so, it just has no morals in it. It's just narrativizing this awful, really just terrible event and trying to make it really exciting and manipulating all this drama and like giving you all these reveals, and it's just so forced. And there's like moments where they're showing like, it's like a dramatic reenactment of these texts going back and forth between the husband and wife. And there's like, they like misspell texts and they have to like go back and delete stuff and then add the actual text. It's just so weird and manufactured. And then they highlight the part of the text that you're supposed to focus on. Like, whoa, look at this. Look what they said. It's just, I really don't like it. And I think it's pretty invasive. It's just, I don't think it should exist, but yeah, people really, really like it. But it's just, another reason why Netflix is so good is because of all this true crime stuff that they do. And yeah, this movie is doing nuts. And I think even in terms of like their movies and TV shows combined, I think this is like the top thing viewed over the weekend. It's craziness to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of the Netflix method though.
Yeah, it's so, oh my God. It gets you at first because it's really, really interesting, and it has a strong mystery to it. And you're like, what is this? And it kind of tricks you into not thinking that it's a real event that happened for a while. And then it kind of starts to show its cards, and you think, oh my God, I feel sick to my stomach. I shouldn't be watching this. This is very invasive. And they show his detainment footage of people questioning him in his polygraph test, and it's just not good. I don't know. People seem to love this and are going nuts for it, and there's all these crazy articles about like, oh, what happened to the family since then, or where are they now? And it makes me feel scuzzy. I don't know. I feel like there's an entire different conversation to have about this, but yeah, don't watch it. Watch something else. Watch Noel Holmes again. It's delightful.
But will it be a society-breaking cultural phenomenon like Tiger King?
I hope not. Tiger King is at least a little more interesting and has more stuff going on in it. But yeah, I hope people don't watch it that much, because I don't want to have to hear about it, because I'm annoyed and crusty about it.
Well, I mean, you take solace in knowing that I've never heard of it, so that's good.
I'm proud of you. Good job, Brennan. I knew I liked you.
Yeah, that is American Murder. Enola Holmes is still performing pretty well. It's still in the top 3. A lot of times you either see a Netflix movie just stay at the top one for forever, or it just disappears within a week. So it's nice to see Enola Holmes still hanging in there. And then Yogi Bear just baffles me because everyone kind of loathed that movie when it came out, and it's in the top 5. And then Vampires versus versus the Bronx. I have not seen, but I'm really intrigued by this premise, which is basically like gentrification, but through the lens of vampires attacking the Bronx. So I'm definitely going to try and watch it sometime this week.
I saw this movie. It's fun. I liked it a lot. It's very much, it's the plot where the kids know what the evil thing that's going on, and no one else believes them. All the adults are like, you're in trouble. Get back in the house. How dare you run around? And they're like, no, but it's vampires. And they're like, are you crazy? What is happening with you? It's very much that plot that you've seen so many different times where they just have to figure out how to solve the case while no one believes them. And then eventually people come to their side. But yeah, it's a great little premise for a movie. These vampires are basically just a real estate company. It's kind of funny. It's a real estate company shell for a bunch of vampires. They're going to take over from the neighborhood. Shea Wiggum is in there too, one of my favorite character actors, and also had his legendary Joker performance as the cop who watched Joaquin Phoenix dance to Gary Glitter on the stairs. Just great performance there. Yeah, I like this movie. It's you know what you're gonna get. It's silly. It's like 85 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and there's nothing amazing about it. But yeah, it's about gentrification. I think it realizes that concept pretty well. And another little weird tidbit is Zoe Saldana is in this movie for 2 minutes in the cold open.
Nice.
It's just weird. You're just like, oh, is that Zoe Saldana? Yes, it is. And then she's just gone from the movie. It's very strange, but. Yeah, I like this movie. Method Man plays a priest. It's pretty funny. I like it.
Yeah, and then there's really not a whole lot else going on in the top 10. We already talked about Real Steel somewhat extensively last week, and that's weird resurgence. But Netflix did have another release that didn't quite crack the top 10, but was a huge buzz at Sundance. This is one of the movies that I heard people talking about and just praising the entire festival. I sat in a line for an hour and a half trying to get in, and unfortunately did not. But I'm hoping to watch it sometime in the next couple days. And basically, the premise of Dick Johnson is Dead is that this woman, Kristen Johnson, the filmmaker, is making this documentary about her father's death, even though he's not actually yet dead. And it's just like a look at how you process death and like enjoying looking back on his life while he's still here, and just making that connection with your parents while they're still able to maintain it.
Yeah, and the thing you forgot to mention there is that these are stunt person deaths. So he's falling downstairs and he's in a pool of blood, looking dead, and he's falling a few stories, or I don't want to ruin the cold open to this movie, but it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I laughed so hard. Yeah, I was lucky enough to see this back at Sundance. This was the last movie I saw. It was just an unbelievable way to end my festival, and it's one of my favorite movies of the year still. It's so great. This is the documentary that released on Netflix this week that you should be watching instead. It's so good. I actually caught up with Kirsten Johnson's last movie, Camera Person, which is basically it's stitched together. I don't know however many decades she's worked as a cinematographer. All this different footage of her work as in documentaries just over time, and it just shows. First of all, it's just a great travelogue because she's like going to Bosnia, then Texas, and Zambia, all of these crazy places. But it's basically one of the best movies I've ever seen about filmmaking, because it explains through cutting all these different pieces of footage together throughout time. It shows just what film can do in terms of giving people a voice and exploring fascinating and topics that should be focused on, and just exploration of the self instead. And it reminded me a lot of Dick Johnson is Dead too, because her mother also died of Alzheimer's, died of Alzheimer's, because Dick Johnson is still alive, thank God. But it's a very interesting mirror to look back at her as well, because I think she talks about it in Dick Johnson is Dead too. But yeah, Two great documentaries. Dick Johnson is Dead is unbelievable. It's really, really funny. Can't recommend it enough. It's also less than 90 minutes too, so it's perfect. It's a perfect little movie. I love it so much.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out.
It's so funny. It's one of the it's so funny. It'll make you cry really, really hard. It's all earned. It's so good. Dick Johnson, Kirsten Johnson's dad, is hilarious. He's just a really good guy to interview and be the center of something like this. You just, every time he does something, you just get a great big smile on your face. He's so great. Yeah, this movie is just really, really terrific.
Yeah, and that is pretty much what's going on at Netflix. But then we've all been watching, or at least trying to watch as much as we can, stuff in our own right. I know I've been doing some spooky movies, and I know, Nick, you've got a pretty big spooky recommendation. But Brennan, if you want to take it away with what you've been watching lately.
Yeah, so one thing I'll mention real quick, just because it was a little eventful for me, got out of the house and watched The Personal History of David Copperfield at theaters, actually. Because, I mean, cases are now starting to rise again here, so I wanted to go before the theaters are closed. However, it was pretty cool because I think it was just like 4 people total in a theater that sits like 60 or something like that. And I kept my mask on the whole time. It's pretty good. Pro tip, just breathe through your nose and it's completely fine. You can have it on for hours. But The Personal History of David Copperfield, starring Dev Patel, was very delightful, very good movie. It debuted at TIFF back in 2019, and it took a while for it to get out. I'm not sure if COVID had anything to do with it, but this was a good time for sure. I don't know if you guys have seen this at all. I don't know how it's going to get distributed in the U.S. or if it went to theaters in a limited run or something like that, but this was good. I don't know if it has enough awards potential, just because I don't think it's really kind of taken off that much. But Dev Patel, I mean, this is a good year for him. He's got the other A24 film as well that I know Nick is looking forward to. But yeah, this was a good movie for sure. A little bit rushed for me near the end. I don't want to spill too much about the movie, but it was a good time.
Yeah, I think it's just a very pleasant movie. It just kind of filled me with joy the same way that Enola Holmes did. They really remind me of each other, and it's just like this nice little whimsical story. It's just pleasant, even when it's sad.
And Hugh Laurie is he's funny in this.
Yeah, Hugh Laurie and Tilda Swinton, all of their scenes together were just beautiful. Tilda Swinton, like, screaming at donkeys was just probably one of the funniest things I've seen this year. And then I have been watching spooky movies primarily. So I watched What We Do in the Shadows for the probably like 50th time the other day. And then some friends and I watched It Follows last night, which I'd only seen like the last 45 minutes of it before. So this was my first time going through the full movie. And it's just really well executed. I think it's a concept that could easily become boring. But there's obviously some nice subtext about like STDs and kind of the stigmas around sex when you're a teenager. And it's also just creepy and gross and horrifying. And you're just unsettled the entire time because it could be anybody just kind of walking towards you. And I think it's just a very well balanced horror movie.
I had a lot of Micah Monroe stock after It Follows. I don't really know what she's been up to. I mean, she was in that Greta movie. Did either of you guys see that? I think I was the only person in the world to see that movie. But she pops up. Oh, she was in The Guest, which is a really terrific movie as well, by Adam Wingard. But I don't know. I feel like after I saw It Follows and I saw her in it, I thought she was going to be a huge star. But it seems like she just really likes horror movies, so I don't know. But I still have my stock. I think she's great.
Yeah, she was also in Honey Boy with Shia LaBeouf last year.
Was she in that?
Which was,
I don't remember her in that.
Was just like his. Yeah, she was one of the people in the like hospital, I believe.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
In Shia LaBeouf's personal therapy movie. She was also in Independence Day Resurgence a few years ago.
Maybe that's where the stock went away.
She did. Yeah, she did that in The Fifth Wave in the same year. It's a rough year.
She also did Tao. Remember Tao? Do you even know what Tao is? I don't even think I know what Tao is.
The poster looks familiar, but the actual movie, no.
I think it's one of those terrible Netflix movies. Anyway, I really like her, and I think this is one of the better female performances in a horror movie that I can remember as of late, or like the last decade or something like that. I think she is terrific in this movie.
Yeah. I think it's very good. Like there's really not anything to complain about with It Follows. Like it works. It knows when it's got its point across. It dips out at like the hour and 35-minute mark. Just a really, really well done horror movie. And then Nick, I believe you also had a horror movie in your suggestion box. You want to talk about that?
I would love to talk about Possessor again because I'm a strange man who wants to continue talking about this movie. I saw this back at Sundance, so I guess I'm cheating because I haven't seen it recently. But it came out in theaters this week, and I'm not going to tell you to go to theaters because that's just not a good idea in many places in the world right now. But Possessor is coming to streaming, I believe, on November 6th. I don't know where it's coming to. My guess is maybe Hulu because it's distributed through Neon, and Neon and Hulu have a big deal together. But Possessor is one of the most insane movies I think I've ever seen in my life. And that's not hyperbole. This movie's insane. And I don't really even want to describe much about it, except that basically the plot is that a big shadow company is using brain implant technology so that assassins can take over the consciousness of other people and perform assassinations. And then that person gets killed, the person they took over, and then they can just exit out of that person's consciousness without a trace. So just a really interesting, good sci-fi concept. And it's directed by Brennan Cronenberg, so David Cronenberg's son. And it is just as vile as you would probably think a movie from David Cronenberg's son would be. He also made a really good movie, Antiviral, a few years ago that I think is pretty good, but is very much proto whatever the hell Possessor is. This movie is, I'm so happy it's being marketed as Possessor Uncut because I don't know, this movie is NC-17 at the very least. I don't know how you make this movie R or anything less than that. It is just the most vile thing, and there's just sex happening and just erections. It is just all it's crazy. And then there's like it's a fever dream of just madness, and the way he shows the consciousness fighting with each other. So the big thing with this is Andrea Riseborough enters the body of Christopher Abbott, who I just love in every movie he's in, but something goes wrong, so their two consciousnesses are battling in Christopher Abbott's body, and it's just pure insanity. Sean Bean's in it too. He's great. Jennifer Jason Leigh runs the Shadow Company, and she's terrific as well. I hope people check this one out. You may not like it because it is one of the most insane things. It is unrelentingly bloody and terrifying to watch, but it's also amazing. I think. I don't know if I quite love it, but there's so much in it I love about it that I want everyone to go see it eventually. So tuck that away for whenever you can see it safely.
I'll make a mental note.
Please see it. I want to do a 4-hour pod about this movie. I would love that.
I was close, as I said. I was close to seeing it yesterday, so I mean, might happen soon.
So yeah, speaking of 4-hour podcasts, this week we'll see the release of the long-awaited Hubie Halloween, which after Sandler was not nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor last year after Uncut Gems. At the Screen Actors Guild Award ceremony, he swore that he would make the worst movie ever. And now Hubie Halloween is here. It'll be on Netflix on Wednesday. It's just Sandler hanging out with his friends, but with costumes. With Halloween-centered costumes this time. So it should be pretty exciting. But remember, you can always check us out online at MovieBabble.com. We'll be back next week talking about Hubie Halloween. And as a final message, if you're the guy that punched Rick Moranis, we're coming for you.